We could talk about trading up too, but first let's talk about potentially trading down. The Niners are in an interesting spot, 11. This is where they drafted Patrick Willis. This is where you can get a Hall of Fame player. And if you draft for need at 11, you can really mess up. That's what they did in 2018 when they took McGlinchey. They needed a right tackle. They got one. He fit his skin. They missed on Minka and Derwin and others. So
Grant, are you dissing McGlinchey? He's great. He's awesome.
So good.
God, I wish we could have him back.
I know. So look, if they stay at 11, they could be in a position where you just got to take the best player available. And look, if it's Mason Graham or Walter Nolan, fills a need. Bingo. But the Niners really need an offensive lineman. And you can't keep putting it off. There's always a reason not to draft an offensive lineman. Well, they take a couple of years to develop. All the more reason to do it now. I mean, that's why it's so bad that you haven't been doing it the last few years. So you can't just say, well, best player available is an offensive lineman. We'll wait till next year. Or you trade down. Here's what I want to say. If you take a guard at 11, that's a problem. If you take a guard at 16 or 17, that's not a problem. If he's an all-pro. So why not trade down 5 spots, 6 spots? You could get another third-round pick or something. Take a guard or a right tackle, someone that you're not sure, but someone who could go either way, but you feel like if he's a guard, he's an all-pro. I just feel like I don't know, maybe you don't like it, but yeah, man, get the defensive line. That's great, but I think the offensive line is more important, and you can't put it off forever.
I just think trading up in this year's draft for an offensive lineman is kind of crazy because
trading down.
Trading down. That's what I meant. Trading down. I think trading down. Like, do you mean like going backwards or going? You mean going
down.
Backwards?
So I'm like from 11 to 16 to 17.
Okay. I agree with that, but because first of all, I don't think Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks will fall that far.
Fair.
No, there's no.
You could get Armand Membu.
You could, or you can get Simmons, but that ACL injury, we talked about that before.
Patellar tendon. No, I don't want that.
But I have a question for you. Let's say the Niners are at pick 11, okay? And Debo wants out, and McMillan is there at 11. What are you doing? Because listen, I'm the type of guy, Grant, and the Eagles do this every year. They pick the best player available when they have to pick. And that's why they're so good. And I'm not saying pick a wide receiver. I'm not saying that, but pick the best player available at 11. If there's not really the best player available, okay, then trade back then. But would you pick McMillan if Debo left and we couldn't get anyone in free agency? Would you pick McMillan?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
And no. And here's why I keep coming back to the offensive line. Like,
let's say Genty though. If Genty's there,
what weapons are great. Well, you gotta love weapons. D linemen are great, but I gotta keep coming back to the offensive line. It's not a sexy position. But look, hold on. If you don't like your quarterback, if you're not really invested in the position, you got Jimmy G, you got a rookie. You don't have to invest in your offensive line.
No.
Well, because you're not investing in your quarterback. If he gets hurt, the backup might be the same. And if you invest in the offensive line and give the guy a bunch of time, who's to say he's going to be any good? You still might have to win with running the ball and defense. But if you invest in your quarterback, you give him $55 million a year and say, you're our franchise guy.
Okay.
You have to also invest in the offensive line, because if you don't, and you have all that money tied up in that position and he gets hurt, you are FUCKED majorly. And Brock got hurt twice this year. You need him on the field if you're paying him 17% of your cap. Need him on the field.
I agree with you. I didn't know we signed Purdy already. So let's say we signed Purdy to our deal.
Okay.
And if Purdy's making that 55 mil, 1,000%. You pick at pick 11. If Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks is there, you pick either one of those guys. You pick them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Those two are gone. Maybe you trade down to 16 for Walter Nolan. But I do think Walter Nolan will go top 15. I think, or I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually no, he wouldn't go top 10. But I do like.
Even Grant look like top 10 picks. But I don't know if there's two teams in the top 10 that are going to take D tackle, but they both look like top 10 picks.
That's true. But let's say
to me, I don't know.
Grant,
they both look like year one starters, like right away. Day one, year one starters to me. That's top 10. I don't know.
You think Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks are day one starters?
I was saying Nolan and Graham, but Banks and Campbell, yes. The only question is it at guard or tackle? I think Banks would be an all-pro guard.
Do you think
could he play right tackle as well? Probably. But even if he can't, if you get Banks at 16 and he's an all-pro left guard, like, great. Because here's another thing I want to say. If you got to go through the Eagles, right? Yeah. Their best player on the defensive line is Jalen Carter. And that means you have to have two special guards, because if one of your guards sucks, guess where Jalen Carter's lining up on 3rd and 4?
On the sucky guard. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going at Spencer Burford all day. So it's not enough just to say we got Dominic Pooney, we're good. Like, nah. If you can get an all-pro guard in the top 20, there's no rule against it. I mean, there are Hall of Fame guards who are taken in the top 20. 16, 17, 18, that's a perfectly fine place to take them. And then if they can play right tackle, even better. But you might even argue that having a great guard would be more valuable, because that interior pressure just ruined the Chiefs, and it would ruin Brock.
And I agree with that with you. I think trading down though is stupid. If Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell are there, you pick them. No brainer. Shanahan and Lynch, no brainer. You pick him. Okay. But if they're not there, trade down. Like, trade down. Why not? Well, like, why not? Walter Nolan will be there at 16, 17, hopefully. Then you pick Walter Nolan. This year's draft, Grant, like you said, the word sexy. It's not going to be a sexy draft. We're not going to get the McMillans, the Genties. We're not going to get that. This draft is going to look on paper kind of ugly. Well, not ugly player-wise. Like, the players are going to be good, but positionally, it's not a sexy draft. We got to draft offensive line, defensive line. Like, that's our main thing, though. Offensive line, our main thing.
To me, I mean, like, they're really talking themselves into paying Brock all this money because, like, well, you know, Trevor Lawrence got it, and Tua got it, and Jordan Love, and Dak,
and if you pay your quarterback that much money, if you pay your quarterback that much money, you need to protect your quarterback.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, let's look at the market, right? If that's the market, so all these quarterbacks that get paid all this money, the only one who wins is Hurts, and he's the only one who has a great offensive line.
Yes,
only one. And if he didn't have a great offensive line, he wouldn't be special. I'm sorry.
And I think too, you can kind of compare Hurts and Purdy. And I'm not saying for the chat, I'm not saying Purdy's better than Hurts, because Hurts just won a freaking Super Bowl. But at a point, you can kind of see they're kind of the same. They're kind of on the same teams, basically. Hurts has insane weapons. Purdy, when he went to the Super Bowl, had insane weapons. But out of those two teams, who had the better offensive line?
It's not even close. Not even close.
No, if that was the debate, then close. Eagles would win in 0.0 seconds. Like, it would be done. It would be like they would literally win in a second. I do think, though, if we sign Purdy to that big of a contract, our main thing is to keep him protected. Because I think if Purdy, like, this might be a crazy take for me, Grant, you put Purdy on that Eagles team, they win the Super Bowl.
Dude, well, yeah, I think so too. I think they would have won that game with Kenny Pickett. I mean, their defense was just incredible. But real quick, like, I'm just looking at their offensive line. Jordan Mailata, drafted and developed. Landon Dickerson, drafted and developed. Cam Jurgens, drafted and developed. Mekhi Becton, they got off like waivers. Lane Johnson, drafted and developed.
And Jurgensen, this is his first year. This was Jurgensen's first year at center, and he's in.
Tyler Steen, drafted and developed. I mean, they don't mess around. Like, yeah, they have a great D line too, but there were years where they like signed Javon Hargrave and signed Hassan Reddick. Like, they prioritize the offensive line in the draft. They take a guy in the first 3 rounds almost every year. They're not messing around. So when a guy goes down, they have like, they have a 3rd round pick that's backup left guard. Yup, they're not messing around. I don't know. You can always find a reason not to take an offensive lineman, but the Niners have been doing that for the last 4 years, and it's not working.
If you want to win and you want to pay Purdy that much money, you got to invest into your offensive line. Because if you pay Purdy that much money, we have this same crappy offensive line. Oh my gosh, we will.
If you could have a killer D line, but if your $55 million a year quarterback is on IR, you're still fucked.
100%.
You're not too much money on IR. You're fucked.
Yep. F you.
Sorry, your D line's great, but it can't protect your number one investment in your organization.